Srimad Bhagavatm is a literary incarnation of God. Srimad Bhagavatm. Yeah, it's okay. So here's one cow. The cow is enjoying the first two cantos. General summary. Okay. Again, cantos 1 and 2 are Pada Padma, Lotus Feet of Krishna. Then 3 through 9 is all based upon the Manus. Actually, the whole Bhagavatam is based on that pretty much from this point on. But 10 and 11 is Krishna's pastimes, Krishna's disappearance pastimes. And finally, Canto 12 is like an epilogue, like after everything's finished, like that. So of course, 10 and 11 are the real essence. Prabhupada says the 10th canto is the essence of all Vedic literature, all wisdom. And that's why he translated the Krishna book, because he said, I can die at any moment. So I've given my readers the essence of the Bhagavatam, which is the 10th canto in the Krishna book. Okay. Cantos 1 and 2 we will discuss later. Let's see how they fit into the other 10 cantos. Manvantars. Cantos 3 to 9 discuss Manu avatars and other avatars, incarnations. Canto 10 and 11 discuss Krishna's pastimes. Krishna is not an avatar of God. He is Avatara Avatari, the source of all incarnations. To appreciate his full personality, we must first see his different partial incarnations. These are presented in cantos 3 through 9. Types of avatars. Purusha avatars. They are like the prison minister, the prison warden, and the prison guards. They are always with this material world. So in America they say warden. What happened here? Okay. Yeah. So here we have a Krishna. Then he expands himself as all the forms of Vaikuntha. Then he expands himself as, where are we? As Mahavishnu. Like that. Yeah. So Mahavishnu is the Purusha avatar, the first Purusha avatar. He always deals with the material world. The material world is a very small part of the spiritual world. Just like in Sydney, is probably a municipal prison. Right? Where is it? Anybody know? Where is it? Where is the city prison? Nobody knows. So in Vaikuntha, you may ask people, where is the external energy? You say, well, I don't know. But it exists. It's a part of Vaikuntha. It's part of the spiritual world. But it's for people who are a little bit irregular in their habits, activities. So we're all like that. We're all in the material world because we're all a little crazy, everything else. So Mahavishnu is like the minister of prisons. He decides where the prisons are going to be, what the rules are going to be, all these things like that. Then each prison, he enters in as, in English it's called the warden, the person who's in charge of each prison individually like that. And that's Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So all these universes are coming from Mahavishnu's body, just like from our body little particles of perspiration come. Somebody's out here. So all these
Babaji.
Oh, okay. All right. I pitch. So all these different particles of perspiration are coming from our body and also from our breathing, right? And every one of those little particles is a universe. And each of those universes is a Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So just like this body has a soul, the universe has a soul. And that's Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. He makes it alive. So that's prison warden. In prison guards, everywhere we find that there are, Krishna expanded as a super soul. Like in the prison, we have cameras everywhere, people watching everything else, like the prison guard. So, Mahavishnu, what is it? Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So these are the three Purusha avatars. And as long as there's a material world, they're here. When there's no material world, There's no Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. There's no Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. They go back into the body of Mahavishnu. They're his expansions like that, his incarnations like that, so on. Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Mala. Okay. And these are the Purusha avatars. Then there are Lila avatars. They come to the prison sometimes to give a certain lesson. Like Lord Ramachandra, he's coming soon. And he comes to show, to do some work with demigods, to get law and order reestablished in the universe. But he also comes to show ideal grihasta ashram. Ideal life for grihastas. So Lila avatars come to show one particular pastime, one lesson. In Manu avatars, they are in charge of the universe for a fixed period during each day of Brahma. Brahma is a demigod in charge of the universe, but he is not managing things from moment to moment. Just as on a ship, there is a captain, but also officers of the watch. Like that. So one watch will be like 6 hours. So that means in one day, how many officers of the watch are there? 4. And so 1 hour overlaps. And one guy's in charge of the whole ship. He's right there watching what happens. Another guy comes, they talk about what's happening. So for 1 hour they're both there, and he leaves, and he has 6 hours by himself. I was in the airport in Lima, and in one office it said general manager. And right next to him one said duty officer. Same thing. So Brahma's in charge of the universe, right? But he's not like running it every moment to moment. Like that. The Manus do that. So how many Manus are there in one day of Brahma?
14.
Yeah, 14. And they go through how many Divya Yugas? 71. Yeah. Kali Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, Satya Yuga. Those 4 together are a Divya Yuga. Like that. So 1,000 of those Divya Yugas make one day of Brahma. So in one day of Brahma, there are 14 Manus in charge. I think you got it in the next slide like that. Brahma is the head of this universe. In each day of his, there are 14 Manu avatars, one after another. Srimad Bhagavatm takes us through them in cantos 3 through 9. Along with them, we also see so many other incarnations of Krishna until in the 10th canto we can understand Krishna directly. So when there's a change of Manu, there's a change of demigods, there's a change of the 7 rishis. They're all under Manu's authority. Manu is directing Indra, Manu is directing Varuna, Manu is directing the 7 rishis like that. So he changes the new set of demigods, the new set of rishis. And sometimes somebody may be the Indra, and the next time he may be the Manu. He's changing around like that. This is how things are going on. It's not happening by chance. It is like a whole system of organization in the universe. Okay. Details of cantos 3 through 9, Manu Avatar. You can see here we got it going from up here, 3 through 7, 8 and 9 like that. Okay. The first Manu, Swayambhu Manu and his children, that goes all the way 3 through 7. Then other 13 Manus, then our Manu, Vairasvata Manu. Most of the Puranas don't have commentaries. There's 18 major Puranas, and most of them don't have commentaries. But Srimad Bhagavatam has a commentary by everybody, because everybody wants to show Srimad Bhagavatam supports our philosophy. Yes, Srimad Bhagavatam definitely proves that we are all Bhagavan. And by the 10th canto we will realize, I am Krishna, you are my Radha. Okay. But, it's like a commentary by the followers of Shankaracharya, not by Shankaracharya. Everybody has a commentary, because it's so wonderful. Other Puranas may start off with one topic, go to something else, come back to something else, but the Bhagavatam is very clear. Back in the very beginning, it establishes its idea, Ete Shamsa Sakal Pum Sam, Krishna's tu Bhagavan Swayam. And there's so many different incarnations of incarnations, but the original personality of all these is Krishna. So through all these different cantos, it's showing it's Varaha, and it's showing Purusha Avatar, and Shiva. and gradually coming to appreciate that no, Krishna is the original personality, not Jehovah, not Allah. Yeah. But what's the relationship? So, the didactic method is following the manus, but the content is seeing different incarnations. Okay. Chapter 3 through 7. Swayambhu Manu and his wife Satarupa had 5 children. Okay? 3 daughters. Devahuti, Akuti, and Prasuti. The Uti sisters. Okay? 2 sons, Uttanapada and Priyavrata. A memory device. Zap up the order that these children appear in the Bhagavatam. Devahuti, Akuti, Prasuti, Uttanapada, Priyavrata. Very systematic. Okay. Yeah. Analysis by chapter groups. Okay, so our laser gun would help. Okay. But it's okay. So chapter 3, so you see here? What's going to happen? I've never gone through this before. You see each of the children of Swayambhu Manu on the right? You see that? Devahuti, then Akuti, Prasuti, Uttanapada, Priyavrata. The Bhagavatam tells about them and their children one after another. So Canto 3, and chapters 1 through 4, Vidura meets Uddhava. Uddhava directs Vidura to Maitreya. Maitreya and Vidura have all kinds of conversations about the creation of the universe, everything else. That comes to the whole story of how Varaha had to come and stop the development of the universe by getting rid of Hiranyakasipu and Hiranyaksa. And then it comes to the point of the appearance of Satarupa and Manu and their children. And first it discusses Devahuti, chapters 20 through 33. She married Kardama, that was her son, and very, very beautiful explanation. Okay. Canto 4 describes about the other, chapter 1 is a genealogical table of the daughters of children, daughters of Manu. So Akuti's there. She married Ruchi, and the Ruchi and her had 2 children. One was Vishnu and one was Lakshmi. Okay. And then it also talks about all the daughters of Devahuti and all their descendants. And all of them, of course, were many demigods, Atri, and other people like that. Okay. Then chapters 2 through 7 talk about Prasuti. And she married Daksha, and their daughter was? Sati. Yeah, so the whole story then about how Sati was so upset that she left her body, and then Daksha lost his head, and so on. Okay, finished. The next is Uttanapada, and he was the father of? Yeah. And all the story then, 13 through 14, Dhruva Maharaj's pastimes, and 6 generations on down to Anga. And Anga had a really nice son named? Yeah, cool dude. Yeah. He was the big rascal, all the small rascals went away. Okay. Yeah. Then 15 through 23 is about Prithu, who also comes in the line of Dhruva. Then finally, 24 through 31 is about Maharaj Prachini Baharisha, right, and his sons, the Prachetas. And Narada Muni comes to his house, and a very pious person. He says, "Oh, Narada Muni, welcome, great sage. We're just about to have lunch, pure vegetarian food." All my cooks are vegetarian. Please come in, have some lunch with us. Narada Muni said, "Okay, all right." So then after lunch, Narada Muni said, "Maharaj, would you like to hear a story?" And of course, everyone likes to hear a story after lunch. So Narada Muni told him the story of Puranjana. And after he was about, almost all the way through, then Maharaj, Prachini Barishat said, "Narada, I'm Puranjana, aren't I?" And Narada Muni said, "Yes." He said, "Very clever." He said, "But it's a fact. I wouldn't have been able to accept who I am and understand these things unless you put it like in this analogy like that. And I can see I'm in a very dangerous position. I'm supporting all this animal sacrifice and everything else." So he called his secretary. He said, "When my sons come back, tell them to take over. I'm going to go join the Hare Krishna movement." So he announced everything. His sons were the Prachetas. I forgot how many there were, quite a few. But he sent them off to do austerities so they could become good grihastas. It still goes on exactly like this. When a boy gets about 18 years old or something, his father sends him off to the university to do austerities, right? So he can become a doctor or a lawyer or an engineer, and he can become a good grihasta. Like that. So Prachetas went off with that attitude, and they met Lord Shiva, who came out of a beautiful lake on a bull, and he said, I'm a devotee, and you're devotees too. I like you boys. Come here, I'll teach you a prayer. So he taught them this prayer, this meditation. So they went in the water, underwater, and did meditation, were chanting this prayer for a long time. So at the end of the, end of the fourth canto, we leave the Prachetas underwater chanting their prayers. So then, you can see the arrow there, right? There's the arrow. They come back in again in the sixth canto, so they hold their breath. So canto 5 then goes to Priyavrata. And of course he did many wonderful austerities and everything else. In the beginning, he just wanted to stay a brahmachari. He wanted to stay uninvolved in all these material activities. And Narada Muni was preaching to him. Narada Muni's business is going around making everybody into brahmacharis. So he's preaching to Priyavrata about how to advance the brahmachari life and everything else. Then his father comes, Swami Brahmana, and says, I've been doing all these austerities, taking care of the universe, helping people. Now please, you take over this job so I can renounce and do these things. So Priyavrata Brahmachari looked at Narada Muni, and Narada Muni kind of better to stay Brahmachari. So, Swami Brahmana kind of made his obeisance and went away. And then Narada Muni continued preaching to Priyavrata, and after some time he looked up, and here comes Priyavrata, Swami Brahmana back. But now he has Brahma with him. So Narada Muni is smiling, because he knows why he brought Brahma, because Brahma's going to try and also convince Priyavrata to become a grihasta. And Narada Muni is so powerful that he could defeat even Brahma's preaching. But he knows he can't do it, because that would be Guru Maryada Vyatikudama. He would be surpassing his own guru. So he knows that, Swami Brahmana has tricked him like that. Out-generaled him. So Brahma comes and says, very nice, and your attitude is very nice, you're taking a brahmachari, but please, if you could actually become a grihasta, that's why your father has some relief. And we all promise, Narada Muni, myself, Brahma, and Swami Brahmana, that even though you enter into grihasta ashram, you won't become confused. And we promise that after 50 years, we'll pull you out. We promise, okay. Here we go. So he became a grihasta. And he did wonderful things himself. Nobody can compare the activities of Priyavrata. He did everything. Then he was the father of Agnidra. Agnidra was the father of Nadi. And finally, Rishabdev died. And so probably like very much the instructions by Rishabdev, like that. Very much the instructions of Rishabdev in life. And very powerful, very pure. So that's 4 to 6. And 7 to 13 then is about the son of Rishabdev, Bharata Maharaj. He renounced everything. He went to the forest, very purified person. He was doing basically Astanga Yoga, Bhakti Yoga. And he came to the point of Bhava. Adoshrada, Sadhusanga, Bhava. At that point, he had an accidental fall down by developing an affection for a deer. So the Purport Baba said, no way. In the platform of Baba, there's no possibility of accidental fall down. This was an offensive attitude. It was a voluntary offensive attitude towards serving Krishna. Don't bother me, I'm playing with my deer loves me, my deer tells me I'm God, I'm wonderful, I'm a supreme friend. So he developed a little bit of, voluntarily consciously developed a little bit of a separate attitude and like that envy of Krishna. Then Krishna said, hey, come on, what is this? And so he tossed him into the body of a deer, a stag. How's it go? Mam hi parshya pashritya, no. Mam chayo vyacharena, no. Mam hi parshya, what are you doing now? Sadhu eva samantavya.
Apichit sudhuraja.
Apichit
sudhuraja.
Take it word by word. Apichit sudhuracharo. So this is an ananya-bhak. This question comes up sometimes. Well, if devotees in Iskcon are Madhyamādhikaris or Uttama-Adhikaris, how can they fall down or falling down? No, it says ananya-bhak, undeviating devotee, he can fall down. Does he fall down into duracharo, bad habits? No, he falls down into suduracharo, abominable habits. So even an ananya-bhak can fall down in these. But he doesn't go through like an ordinary person like that. So Maharaj Bharata didn't, actually, I'll tell a joke here, what he told me. There was one Iskcon guru, sannyasi, one Iskcon sannyasi in French. And he married his secretary and left his ashram. So two French brahmacharis were talking. One said, Prabhupada said that for a sannyasi to get married is like eating his own vomit. The other French brahmachari said, yes, but look at the quality of the vomit. So, anyway, these things happen at Iskcon. They actually asked one very old Madhva monk about this situation, and he said, we do our horoscopes when we're children. They only choose us if we have strong sannyas karma. We're totally isolated from any kind of agitation. We take sannyas at 12 years old. He said, if I had the kind of burden your sannyas, he said, I would fall down. It's a whole different platform. It's very, so you should learn to adjust to sannyasa, which we've done a lot. The sannyas fall down, or we leave in the ashram. I think 40% of all the sannyasis that Prabhupada initiated, everything else went back to the ashram. That was kind of expected. But it was an emergency. Since 1992, it's been like only one sannyasi has left the ashram. They adjusted. You have to be 50 years old. You have to have a history. You have to have right motivation. Actually, to become a sannyasi in Iskcon is more difficult than become a guru. So anyway, Priya Bhakta, Bharata Maharaj. So Bharata Maharaj came with Prabhupada Bhava, but he made the choice, his free will, like that. And so he became a deer, but he remembered who he was, what was happening, he was repentant, okay. So next birth he took birth as Jadbharat. A very, very strict person, very careful. And while he was wandering here and there, he was wandering in Siberia, and he met Maharaj Rahubana, who was the king of Siberia. Okay. And eventually Maharaj Rahubana realized who he was, his potency, so he said, please instruct me, give me good knowledge. So then, Jadbharat explained to him about the forest of material enjoyment, which is again Virat Rupa, the same thing. And he gave analogies of the cave, the elephant, the python, the merchant. And after hearing all this, who was it? Maharaj Rahubana said, it's very interesting, but I couldn't really follow it all. Could you explain it again? So he explains it again, with more details, more explanation. Then, 14 to 26, Sukadeva Goswami says, actually Maharaj Rahubana is more intelligent than I am. He could understand it 2 times, but I'm still having a hard time explaining it. So 14 to 26, Sukadeva Goswami explains it again, to Maharaj Pariksit directly. Now while he's doing this, he talks about the planetary systems and everything else, and he talks about hell, which is the class we're on right now. So now you see why this is here. So, and he's discussing hell as part of the Rahu. And everybody's going to go to hell. It doesn't matter how good you are, you're going to make some mistake, some point, and you're going to go to hell. Kungi baka, Japanese concentration camp. So in Canto 6, then Maharaj Pariksit says, is there any way that people can actually get free from this reaction to their karma? So Sukadeva Goswami says, yeah, they should do pious activities. They should, sacrifice and this and that. And Maharaj Pariksit says, but that's not going to work. You see again and again people do pious activities. And Sukadeva Goswami says, very good, I was testing you. They should become jnanis, develop wisdom. He also rejects that and he says, yes, okay, I'm very satisfied, you're learning. But the only way to actually get free from reactions to karma is to engage in bhakti yoga. And the essence of bhakti yoga is chanting the names of God. And Kanya Kubje of Ajamilaha. There's a very interesting story about one person named Ajamil who is an example of this. So that's what he's doing. He's taking all these examples from the Vedic literatures. Bhagavatam is an anthology. All the different stuff is there, all the different Vedic sources, and he puts it together to try and educate his disciples. All the way from understanding Krishna as the creator of the universe up to Krishna as Gopijana Balava, or Gopinaths. So in the 6th canto now, there's a whole story of Ajamil. Then we go back to the Prachetas! So they come out of the water, they've done their austerities, they realize Vishnu, and then they marry the daughter of Pramotan or something, which is polyandria, right? What is polygamy? Polygamia. What is polygamia? Polygamy. What is it? Huh? More than one wife. What is polyandria? More than one husband. Why are we opposed to polyandria? I was asked this question during like one class in Peru, and I didn't have a good answer. It was like, some person coming, a girl actually, some Swedish girl, and she was a very kind of reasonable person, listening to everything. Okay, makes sense. She said, okay, but if you're allowing polygamy, then you also have to allow polyandry. Now, what can I say? It's like, it's kind of fair, So I didn't know the reason, really. So finally, if you read this, it probably explains, what is the problem with polyandry? What's the problem with polyandry? Anybody know? Men or women?
I can guess.
Huh?
I can guess.
You can guess, okay.
Maybe too many leaders, too many,
No?
and one follower to don't know which direction to go.
Kind of,
A husband's supposed to lead.
Prabhupada says that feminine psychology, and this is not like, optional. Masculine psychology is like a gross body. You got fingernails. We all got fingernails, right? Okay. We all got a masculine or feminine psychology that's stuck on you like that. So he said the natural, Radharani, whatever, coming down, feminine psychology is naturally to be attached to one man. My daddy. Back off. My daddy. Or my husband, like that. Or my son. So this is very natural for a lady, in the feminine nature, to be attached to one man. The focus is very gratifying. They said, therefore, it's very difficult for a girl to be able to give equal affection to many husbands. And if she doesn't, then there's going to be, conflict. Draupadi was a very qualified girl. Was she able to give equal affection to all of her husbands?
Don't know.
No. She was favoring one of them.
Arjun?
Yeah. On the way back to heaven, all the Pandavas except for Yudhishthira fell down for different faults they made. Draupadi fell down because she was secretly pretending to be equal to everybody. When she wanted something to get done, she'd go to Bhima and say, "Oh, Bhima, you're the only one who loves me, really." And this and that. Can you kill Bhattacharya for me? Oh, of course I'll do it. Like that. And also she wasn't going to marry 5 guys. I don't care what your mother says. I'm not going to marry 5 guys. Forget it. So but then, Yudhishthira used this example specifically of the Prachetas, and she said, okay, there's a precedent like that. Well, you are pretty handsome about it. It's a very mystical thing, too. It was a very subtle thing like that, not popular. So anyway, if you have questions, doubts like that, go on reading. Prabhupada answers the acharyas, and Prabhupada answers the basic questions again and again. So you're not going to make a basic mistake. All these details start coming up like that. So that's the problem, according to our Sampradaya, with polyandria, is it's very, very difficult for a girl to be equally, affectionate to many husbands like that. Okay, maybe somebody can do it. Okay, so the Prachetas married Pramochan or whatever, her daughter, and had children, and one of them was Daksha. Okay, remember Daksha? Yeah, he was chastised for his envious nature. He had his head cut off and had a head of a goat put on like that, and had his hard disk rebooted. So I had to reformat his hard disk. But still, he was the same guy, whatever. But still, it was actually so offensive that wasn't enough. He had to take birth again. So he took birth as the son of the Prachetas and the Sara and Pramochan daughter. Now this is kind of problematic because the real thing is we're trying to get bodies for everybody. That's Brahma's whole purpose. Everybody should have a body. Somebody wants to drink blood, okay, we need mosquito bodies. Somebody wants respect whenever they walk in the room. They want to sleep wherever they want to eat. They want to eat whatever they want to eat. Okay, become a lion. The lion came in right now. Sure. Are you hungry? Sure. Have a seat. So that's you to get that kind of body. So Brahma has to create all these bodies so everybody can advance. And the person who's going to do this is Daksha. And Daksha is being deviated from this whole process by pride and all this kind of stuff. Okay. So at this point, what happens is Daksha gets back online. He produces 60,000 children with Mrs. Daksha. Okay. He sends them all off to do austerities in the university. And Narada Muni comes along and says, Hey guys, come here. Seen these books before? Bet you never seen pictures like this. Whoa, whoa. Try these books. Don't try to teach you, I'm sorry. So Narada Muni converts all 60,000 sons into brahmacharis. And they go in Daksha, it's like, shock, okay, talk to Mrs. Daksha, has 40,000 children next time. And Narada Muni goes to the university and says, hey guys, come here. All your brothers bought these books for me. Converts all of them into brahmacharis. So when Daksha hears it, he just passes out. It's just like Iskcon temple story. Okay, so now the news spreads that Daksha had a third set of children. So Narada Muni goes to his house and Daksha says, oh, hello Narada, so good to see you. Come on in. You want to preach to my children? Go right in. There they are. So Narada Muni comes out with his Veena on crooked. He said, they're all girls, Daksha. Yeah, Narada, you're a strong guy. Go in and preach there to them. You're a good guy. Look them all the same. So then Narada said, you're winning this time, Daksha. So then do our service seminar. So then they all married all the mental children of Brahma, because Brahma's trying to do all this like Zeus, by creating all these mental children. It's going too slow, Or the Atri, who else? Shiva, Kumara, right. So they all married him, and a lot of them married Kasyapa, like that, And then somewhere from one of them, I forget who it is, and Twasta is born, and then Indra offends Brihaspati. Now we're up to Canto 6, chapter 7 to 13. Indra is so arrogant that he offends Brihaspati. Brihaspati just lets him go hang himself. So he's a Brahmin, he's a guru. So he takes the son of Twasta, who is Vishvarupa. Now Indra is disturbed with him, so he kills him. Okay. And then Twasta is angry, so he creates a second son who's Vritasura. This gigantic, powerful demon. Vrita means he covers everything. And the story of Vritasura we have here is actually in the Rig Veda, which is the oldest of all the Puranas. So the story then 14 to 17 is the history of Vritasura. How can such a great demon also be a great devotee? That he was. Okay. In the end, Vritasura is destroying the entire universe, getting revenge against Indra. And then finally Indra is able to knock him down, whatever, cut off his arms, he's trying to cut off his head. And Indra's happy, okay, finally I'm killing Vritasura with Vishnu's help. And Vritasura is laughing, he says, Indra, you're a fool. I'm a fool. Yeah. I'm going to die and go to the spiritual world, and you're going to stay here in this material world. So who's the winner, Indra? Indra's below, But he finishes cutting his head off as his duty. Okay, so there 18 to 19 is Daksha, his 60 girls, and how they marry. Anybody else? Diti, Aditi, and it becomes the mother of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakasipu, which if you're really clever, creates a little problem, because Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakasipu are being born here, but they're being annihilated by Varaha back in the third canto. So these things are going on. So, okay. So then, Hiranyaksha, Hiranyakasipu, and I guess what is it? The story is that, what happens, is that Vishnu helps the demigods to kill Vritasura. So in 7th canto, Maharaj Pariksit says, hey, Vishnu is equal to everybody. So how can he take the side of the demigods like that? It doesn't seem you can say he's equal to everybody if he's helping the demigods. So then Sukadeva Goswami says, however you approach him, he reciprocates. That's what it means, he's equal. If you approach him as your father, he'll take care of you. If you approach him as your friend, he'll be your friend. But if you're only going to approach him as the enemy, he'll reciprocate that way. And so, a good example of this is Hiranyakasipu. So this 7th canto, 1 to 10, it's not the story of Prahlad Maharaj, it's the story of Hiranyakasipu. And Prahlad appears in this as a secondary thing, just to show how Krishna is equal to everybody. Right? After he killed Hiranyakasipu, where did Lord Shivadeva sit down?
On his throne.
Yeah, Hiranyakasipu's throne, which the only way he would have done if he was actually pleased with him. Is Hiranyakasipu in his room right now? There he is on the wall. Giant Vijay Vijay. Yeah. So they incarnated. So we're pleased with them. They're just playing and everything else. So then it goes back. I don't know why especially, but 11 through 15, finishes 7th canto, goes through the whole story. Narada Muni explains Varna Ashram to Yudhisthira. I think that's exactly why it goes in there. A wonderful section about Varna Ashram. Okay. Vila Akuti Pada Priyavata. Okay. Canto 8. Analysis by chapters. In Canto 8, Mars Pariksha asks about the other 13 Manus. So far all we've had is Swayambhu Manu. Wrap up. And you see over here on the right hand side our analysis. 24 chapters. Chapters 1 through 4 are the first 4 Manus. And Gajendra appears during this. 5 through 12 is Manus 5 through 6. And then we see Korma avatar, Mohini avatar. 13 through 14 is Manus 8 through 14. And 15 to 24 is, Bali Maharaj appears, Vamana Dev, Matsya, like that. This is why they're all appearing, because they're all appearing during different Manvantaras, like that. Okay. So then, chapter 9. In Canto 9, we hear about the current Manu. Vaidasvata Manu. His descendants include Krishna. That's where we are now. We're in the 7th Manvantar, about noontime in Brahma's day. And chapters 1 through 3 are about Vaidasvata Manu. He was the father of Ila. And then we get the story of Sukanya and Shaivana Muni, Mars Nadi. In 4 through 5, Ambarish appears in the same descendants of Vaidasvata. 6 to 12, Vaidasvata Manu is the father of Iskcon. Iskcon then goes eventually to Sabari Muni. It's a great story. That goes to Mara Sagar, and it goes to the story of Ram. And of course, this is the solar dynasty. In 14 to 24, we go through the lunar dynasty. Ila, who's again the son of Vaidasvata Manu. Eventually, he was the father of Yadu, Krishna Balaram, and Kurus and Kurus. And so then, of course, Maharaj Pariksha says, well, give me more details about the incarnation of Krishna. Canto 10 are Krishna's pastimes. In Vrindavan, Mathura, Dwarka, and Canto 11 his departure pastimes. So you see this on the right hand side, no? 1 through 3, birth of Krishna, 4 through 40, Vrindavan, 41 through 49, Mathura, 50 through 90, Dwarka. 3 through 5, final instructions to Yudhisthira, which involves the story of the Nadi Yogendras, from which many citations are taken. 7 through 49, final instructions to Uddhava, and 30 through 31, departure of the Yadus and Krishna. Canto 12. Canto 12 finishes the dynasty of Vaidasvata Manu, because it goes back to like what happened after Krishna. And it comes down, right down to Chanaka Pandit pretty much. You can identify all the way down to Alexander the Great. And after that, pretty much it says there's no more real kings. Everybody's just a pretender. And so we see that the monarchy has been eliminated throughout most of the world. Canto 12 finishes the dynasty of Vaidasvata Manu, and includes a summary of Srimad Bhagavatm. 1 through 3, conclude dynasty of Vaidasvata. 4 through 6, departure of Maharaj Parikshit. 7 through 13, summary and glories of Srimad Bhagavatm. Okay. General summary. 1 through 2 are the lotus feet of Krishna. 3 through 9 are all based upon the Manus, with extended details of Krishna. And after that, 12 is the epilogue. Unto the Suda Academy, our Swami, so our address, our webpage, like that. So, any comments, questions, or complaints? Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
In Canto 5th, there is one king Nabi, and also in 9th Canto Nabi. So it's same.
I don't know. I kind of noticed that myself this time too.
Maharaj, that Maharaj Bhagavatm 5th canto, And there's another Mahabharata in the 9th canto.
Yeah.
After which Mahabharata is the Bhagavatam named after?
I can't remember. I think it's the one in the 9th canto. I can't remember. It's one of the Varsha. I think it's one after the 9th canto. Bharata, the father of Shakuntala.
The daughters of Rakshapati, Prajapati, the sisters had various forms of children, as in few were gods, few were demigods, few were snakes, even the Garuda. Kadru had snakes and sister had Garuda. So how were they? Were they not human forms?
Huh?
How were the sisters? How were the daughters?
Okay, because actually Daksha has two sets of daughters. When he's first off, when the first group was Sati, I think he has 16 daughters. And Sati is the youngest. The second time, I think he has 16. This is a very good point, very good question. So we have to understand what is the origin of life. Everybody wants to know this. Okay, our evolution from Darwin. Okay, yeah. So our point is that everything goes from subtle to gross. You know, just like if I have steam, do I have ice? Yeah. All I have to do is cool it down, it'll become water. Vapor will become the water. Cool it some more, and it becomes ice, like that and so on. And I can make forms that different things like that, solid forms out of it, like that and so on. There's some do that. They transport it as a form of steam to some other place and cool it and so on. So that's what's happening from us. And everything's coming from Krishna. And Vaikuntha, and all these forms are there, the subtle forms, 8,400,000 species. This is already kind of there, like that, you know. And so then those have to be created, you know. So at the beginning of the universe, there's not many people, maybe like 45 people or something like that. And things are created, and everybody else kind of knows everybody else, and let's figure out who's who. And the Kumaras are the most wise guys; they can figure out what's going on. But let's go see Vishnu. They go see Vishnu, and they're very respectful. They bow down, they smell his feet, and they smell the tulsi leaves, Makaranda, Vayu. This is transcendental. Because we're free from all illusion. This smells. So at that point, they become devotees. Because they realize the transcendental qualities of Vishnu. You know? So the beginning is like that. So then Brahma asked Shiva, he asked the Kumaras to get married and have children, because it's going too slow. By middle children is too slow, so he's an anxiety. So therefore, he asked the Kumaras to get children and have biological reproduction, speed it up. And they say, no, we're going to say Brahmacharya. They become angry, Shiva comes out. Okay. Then Satarupa and Swayambhuvamanu appear, and he has a big mustache, and she has a good figure. Okay, we're in business. Basically what it says, right? But they're so purified that they just, they don't think about these things. They're relating as on a male-female basis, but a very high, subtle platform like that. So Brahma says, can you become mothers and fathers? They say, okay, we'll do it, We can't do it here. We have to go down to a grosser level of consciousness like that. And then we can't do it because the earth has been kidnapped by Hiranyakasipu and Hiranyaksha. Oh, another problem. So then Varaha appears. Okay. So that's what's happening, Everything's there in a subtle form. Like if I have a blueprint for a house, it's there. The electrical work, plumbing work, construction, here's the loan from the bank. It's there, right? Contractors, But then we have to go down to a grosser level. We have to get the contractor. He has to go to the union hall and hire some laborers. He's got to, so on. So when, Mother Kadru becomes the mother of all the snakes, these kind of things. In dreams, all these weird things happen in dreams. Freud was, informs about all that. Everybody here has strange dreams, Okay, so in a dream, a lady may dream of having an erotic relationship with a snake, like that. Oh, wow, how kinky. And then they're becoming the mother, some intense emotional erotic experience of becoming the mother of all these snakes, like that. Okay, and that's what's happening. It isn't like it's gross mythology or some gross thing. It's all happening at a subtle level. But then she becomes the mother of the snakes, the mother of the horses, the mother of like that. And then the steam becomes vapor. You get Kanaras, Apsaras, Gandharvas, semi-demigods. Then finally it becomes the gross level, and we get our species like that. But you find that there's behind that there's the subtle forms like that, which are more substantial. And the subtle forms are more durable. The forms we have are just coverings, and they'll come off at the time of death like that. And depending how much we can get detached, okay, we'll go up and then we'll go back down again. And we want to get all the way out, okay, then we can go back to the original form of Radha, Krishna, Subal, Nanda Maharaj, like that. Okay? Yeah. So it's anything like my sight hearing and everything else, and then it all makes sense. Oh, okay. Yeah. And when you explain it like this to people, I was doing all this work and how much result is there and how many books are distributed, then we do something else, okay. But then my one devotee was in Chile, and he said, oh, Maharaj, I was taking biology at the university, and we were discussing, all these things, evolution, genetics, and somebody brought up evolution and reincarnation as kind of a joke. And the professor said, no, it's actually a pretty good idea. He said, last year, one of the Hare Krishnas gave a lecture here, and it was me. And he said, then he repeated this whole explanation like that, and all the students were going like, oh. Okay. So that's what the ideas go out there. People begin to understand. Because the Christians, many times, they have Jesus Christ, they believe in God as a person, one person, okay. But they haven't got this steps in between, and so on. They're afraid of reincarnation for certain reasons. Specifically, really it's not all that bad and stuff. So we have this whole, the Bhagavatam, complete explanation. And you can actually experience it. So,
Well, sometimes when we read Srimad Bhagavatm, we're just reading for the story and we're not really picking up the actual philosophy.
yeah.
So how do we actually start begin to pick up the philosophy? Pick up what Prabhupada is actually teaching us?
By doing it. you recognize this problem and everything else, you take your time just to read it. What's it called? In the Krishna book, all these stories, pastimes. Then it comes to prayers for the personified Vedas, which is like all these philosophical things. So when we all get there, we go, oh my God, prayers for personified Vedas. But if you look at the commentaries by Vishwanath Chakravarti, everybody else, they say, oh, goody, like 400 pages of dry philosophy. Ooh, like that. Yeah. If you do Nirjala Ekadasi, my experience at least, you do Nirjala Ekadasi, okay, and your mind is saying, what are we going to eat? And the government just says, we're not going to eat. Oh, no, okay. Then later your mind says, what are we going to eat? So we're not going to eat. Remember, oh, yeah. After about 3 or 4 times that, your mind kind of gives up on thinking about food. And starts thinking about all these very philosophical things and different combinations of ideas. And on that level, it becomes very relishable. And you start looking at the prayers and you start seeing that. What's the difference in these prayers and the other prayers and stuff? So yeah, it's just we have to become jnanis. There's kind of like no way around it. You've got to understand all this stuff. You've got to become like that. And as Vyasadeva is trying to do it in the most painless way possible. Okay, you want to learn Sanskrit grammar? Memorize these 45 rules. Okay, memorize the 108 rules. Memorize this one. So he's giving us stories, and then pretty much, even when Kapila is explaining all the Sankhya to his mother, he said, look, I'm a lady, I'm going to be intellect like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, whatever. So please explain these things to me. What is the universe? Who am I? What is this body? In such a way that I can understand. It will penetrate. So basically, Kapila's Sankhya is lady Sankhya, like that. And even for us, it's difficult. So on. So, but when he's doing this whole thing, he says to her, "But Bhamini, respectable lady, mommy." Yeah, you're already thinking of me as your child, and you have this natural affection for me, and like me, and stuff like that. Just go on with that and develop that. But add some perspective, some logic to it, and stuff like that, and so on. So the recommended process very much is stories and these kind of things. So being attracted to stories and everything else is not wrong, And that will automatically lead us to these questions and stuff. The stories are designed to bring these questions in. So it's not like wrong to be attracted to them. But okay, there's a little bit of intelligence to try and see what the story is, the message is. If we're attracted to Radha Gopinath and everything else, we're thinking about them and everything else, okay, it's great. You know? But okay, but then they're not like, okay, there's some people, for example, they started to have little cups because Radha Gopinath had little, I said, no, normal size cup. And actually started making little puris. Wasn't here at the temple, they started making puris the same size as the deities, like little puris. And I said, no, they're not normal. Make everything the size of a normal person, we like that, So there's certain, things about the technical stuff that we have to know, but it comes naturally.
Maharaj, the Srimad Bhagavatm doesn't seem to go chronologically. Like, for example, you get the example of Radha killing Hiranyaksha, and then later in the 7th canto or somewhere, that birth is explained. So what kind of sequence does the Srimad Bhagavatm follow?
Pretty much, I think it is pretty much, chronological, but it kind of goes back and forth a little bit here and there. Right in the first canto, the sages ask some questions. Suta Swami answers their questions. They ask, what is the essence of all the scriptures, all the dharmas, the incarnation? Says, essence of all the scriptures is Srimad Bhagavatam. The incarnation of this age is Srimad Bhagavatam. Vyasadeva already composed all his other literatures. Why did he do this? When Narada Muni came to him and told him he should do this, everything else is kind of deviating. You should do one pure scripture. So that takes us through the first 6 chapters. So then, at the end of the 6 chapters, he says what? Yata idam yata mati. I heard this, Srimad Bhagavatam, when Sukadeva Goswami was explaining to Maharaj Pariksit at the same time. So now I will try to make you experience it as I experienced it. Right? In South India, they memorize all these mantras, they memorize them forward, they memorize them backwards, they memorize every alternate syllable. They chant them together with 3,000 people. So let's face it, you're not going to make a mistake. 3,000 people are not going to make the same mistake at the same time. And so that people realize, actually, UNESCO made this declared a heritage of mankind. So it's eligible for all kinds of support and everything else like that. So pretty much, these Brahmins in South India who are chanting these mantras, we guarantee we have the same prayers for the Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda that we had thousands of years ago. It's exactly the same prayers and pronunciation. But you ask them what it means, I don't know. They got a little losses, Maybe some of them know, but many times they don't know. So that's what Prabhupada makes this point. Puranas are aimed for a different purpose. They're not aimed to just pass on a mechanical form of external mantra. Prabhupada says this is necessary. He said, but they're aimed to give us the experience of these incarnations. Who are we? What is our relationship? What is the soul? What is our nature? What do we want? And to take us all the way to Krishna. I shall try to make you experience it as I experienced it. You got to be there. And so for that reason, you'll take a story, you'll tell that story, you see the reaction. You say, okay, I got to go a little more details on this. I'll back up. I'll go more. Okay, you got it. Now I'll go ahead. You ask this question. So therefore, the Srimad Bhagavatam is not a direct series of things like that. Srimad Bhagavatam is a glorification of Krishna and his devotees for the purpose of taking us to different levels like that. So sometimes it goes back, sometimes it goes forward. Okay. You understand?
Yeah.
You got it? Because I got it? Yeah. Okay. There you are.
Good job.
Your thumb drive.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, it was all 25,000 verses.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay.
Good job. In the different Puranas, we find sometimes different accounts and the same event described differently.
Yeah.
For example, you see Parikshit Maharaj, Bhagavatam describes in a certain way.
Yeah.
But the other Puranas, they say he was in a tower and he was hiding from everything and the snake tried to get him through the fruit or something like that. It's all different, completely different story.
Yeah.
So people often ask, which one is right, or are they both right, or which one is the...
Again, sometimes, Prabhupada says, sometimes these are different universes, different kalpas. That's part of the reason it's different. There's Sweta Varaha and Rakta Varaha. There's different, and stories are combined like that. So that's one thing. Actually, a really big historian, Arnold Toynbee. Yeah. And very famous historian, the whole history of how history works, what it is. And nice person. He said ultimately history is based upon religion. So he met Prabhupada in the room conversations there. And when Prabhupada, it seems like Prabhupada is like saying, wow, at last I met somebody with a brain in his head. And Prabhupada's talking enthusiastically. And Twiggy says something about like, Indira Gandhi, this and that, the politics in India, and Prabhupada says, yeah. And talks about things, So, Twiggy said, there's three kinds of history, right? The half-truth, the distorted truth, and the damn lie. Okay. So he says, if you're dealing with a history which explains who are the good guys and who are the bad guys, and everything is very clear, he said it's for sure you're dealing with category 2 or category 3. But if there are many questions about what happened, all this kind of stuff like that, he says, okay, that's the best you can hope for. And there's many people like that. So, what actually happened, whose perspective, what was happening, he was in a tower, maybe he was sitting up on a like this and that, and so on. This afternoon I wrote like 200 pages of stuff to your thumb drive. Okay. Well, you sat there writing it all afternoon? No, I use the word write, and now I'm different than somebody would have used it 20 years ago. There's no meaning like that. So that's kind of the same thing. These stories are taking place again during the Dwapara Yuga, the Treta Yuga, like that. Some little child is playing on the floor with his truck. Maybe like 3 years old. And mother's ironing clothes, watching some soap opera. And the kid says, where does my daddy go every day when he goes out? So the child has no conception of work. If he thinks about it, she says, well, he goes and plays with his friends. So is it true? Yeah. In some ways, it's for him, it's about as close as he's going to be able to figure out. And it's not false. Actually, in some ways, it's all it is. You go out there and do more business, and it's kind of a game and competition and money and So same way too, the Puranas say he was in a tower. Maybe he was in some kind of like, psychosomatic tower, and it was that's part of the thing, very much. It's just like dealing with different ages and different environments is a very important point in this. Otherwise, you can't understand. It all becomes mythology. I like so much our Hindu mythology. The Bhagavatm was composed in the 7th century. Some of the parts may go back to the 5th century. There was no Bhagavatam and Vedas until the Aryans invaded. So they invaded, they started to write everything. That's why there's no Naimisharanya mentioned until this part. And so they say the whole thing was basically created by mental speculation, and then people improved it, right? Every generation improved it until finally we have the current form, which is a very good thing. So therefore we see evolution is wonderful. Evolution has produced Srimad Bhagavatam. I never actually saw one guy say that. Because everybody glorifies Srimad Bhagavatam, even the atheists. But this guy was saying that it's so wonderful because it proves the glories of evolution. Because evolution is wonderful, it's produced the Srimad Bhagavatam. Like that. Wow. Yeah. But that's their idea of the origin of the Vedas. I'm doing this whole research now, because lecture is supposed to give in Calcutta on Sankhya, and figuring out what the idea is, and so on. But by their method, they really can't figure out what's going on. They find things missing, what's here and there, part of the manuscript, everything else. So, and even Prabhupada, as far as Radhika Raman, said he was going through this because devotees are apparently fanatical. No, Srimad Bhagavatam is the way it is, this and that, everything else. One book, the Bhagavad Gita as it is, one prophet, Srila Prabhupada, one God, Krishna, everybody else going to hell. So we're looking at this, and he found out that Prabhupada was actually much more liberal than we are in terms of like what happened and all this kind of stuff. Not completely, but in general, okay, maybe this and that. Because Prabhupada's concern is not exactly what happened, his concern is what's happening. Are we going to get people to see Krishna face to face? When you see Krishna face to face, you can ask him what happened. And Krishna say, well, it kind of happened like this and that, and you can understand a little bit. But that's our whole purpose, is not to, we're concerned with history only enough to actually get us focused properly and see Krishna. And once you see Krishna, then everything is there. So time exists in the past. The whole idea, time is, what is time? What is time? What is time? Time is? Yeah. Everything. Time is the external manifestation of Paramatma. So it explains that. Internally is the Paramatma, but externally you see time. Paramatma, Pradhan, Prakriti. How much longer are you going to talk? Just a few more minutes. Okay, a minute more. Okay. Fine, Krishna. Yeah. So, Pradhan, non-manifested, the Mahavishnu. Paramatma enters into it, agitates it, all the forms come out, it's called Prakriti. Like that. So you look internally, you see the Paramatma guiding us, our friend. You know. You look externally, why are you here? And we see time. And what is time? Different cultures have very different views of time. Our time is pretty much coming from Sri Newton. And Kant, at the same time, had a different view of time. Like that. But the English view kind of won out. Time is a line, it goes one direction, there are no branches, and every step is just the same size. A very German view of time. But other what to speak of like non-metric views, but even physicists, have so many views of time. Rising Newtonizing, with Einstein had a whole sophisticated view of time which ordinary people don't use. Yeah. To explain what we were finding out in terms of these particle motions, because I understand all this as an investigator, he had to use a four-dimensional normed Riemann space. And using that kind of space, and he could predict what's happening. Okay, we got it. Hey, what do you know? Atomic bomb. Despite mathematics, he predicted this. So time is very. One topic here. Pardon me. I was invited. You had to participate in a certain number of psychology experiments to graduate as a psychologist. Okay? And that's why they say psychology is the science of white rats and college sophomores. Because the only thing you study are college students and white rats. So it's the science of college students and white rats, psychology. So I went there, and it was a very simple experiment. The guy put his tape recorder on, and there are three sounds. Okay. Click, whistle, buzz. You're supposed to write down, mark, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1. Which came first, which came second. Okay, it's pretty stupid. But these psychologists are three guys who are watching them. So as it's going on, they start coming closer together. And at some point, you got to pay attention very carefully. Okay, at some point you can distinguish the first two, but you can't really catch the third one, but you can deduce. Okay, click, whistle, obviously, buzz, click, buzz, whistle, but you can't really distinguish it like that. But finally, they're going so fast that you can distinguish all three sounds. They haven't merged, but you cannot tell which is first, which is second, or which is third. Very interesting experiment. So therefore, the proposition that time is a line is not supported by empirical experience. Empirical experience is that events can be distinguished, and they're coming in the sequence, but you can't tell. Like that. So therefore, why not pop out over here and go back into it over there? Maybe it's more like a spiral, right? You can go down and pop out and Kali Yuga, different Kali Yugas. Which is more like what we're saying, basically. Yeah, it's more like a spiral. Okay, simple answer for it. Okay, final question. Okay, the ultimate question here. That's it. Yeah, okay.
Mike, you mentioned how Srila Prabhupada liked the teachings of Shabda.
Yeah, many times.
Is there any particular reason why?
No, I don't know. Maybe it's because he's who he is. Maybe because the acharyas like him. Maybe because he's like an incarnation of somebody. The prayers by Queen Kunti, he gave lectures on those 3 times to different places. And he says his prayers by Queen Kunti are actually explained to him, and so on. And if he's an incarnation of Satyaki, then okay, maybe I would explain that. But sometimes I can get prayers by Rishabdev, or prayers by Kunti. And it's kind of, I think, more prominent. The liturgy of the acharyas also. Okay, so stop the clock. One more. Okay, start it again.
There are 14 manus.
Yeah.
We are at the 7th one right now. So does it go on and on? Like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 14, and again 1, and has it happened previously?
No, there are 14 different manus. Just like manu is a post, not a person.
Yeah.
Like so many presidents, so many like that. So in every day of Brahma. There are 14 manas, and then Brahma goes to sleep, there's no manas. When he wakes up, okay, again, yeah, there's going to be 14 manas like that.
So right now we are at the 7.
Yeah.
So what my question was, like, how many, so there would have been numerous manus happened before our time.
In different days of Brahma.
So does it always start from the same story? Does it like, is there always Lakshmanas and,
Yeah.
creating the universe and?
Yeah. There are scheduled incarnations with specific functions for the first chapters. So yeah, some are scheduled, they have certain functions. Pretty much every day of Brahma there is a Ravana and Kumbhakarna. The Prabhupada says usually they are demons, they're not giant Vijay falling down like that. There's a Ram. But sometimes maybe there won't be a Ram. And actually in this particular one, because of the Anasuya, the Dwarpa Yuga is coming, the Treta Yuga is becoming Asado. Satya, Dwarpa should have been second, but Treta, so it's reversed. It's only in this particular Divya Yuga that's happening like that. So you can say, yeah, it runs different each time. Like springtime is different a little bit, but yeah, like that. So, okay. The Prabhupada Gita.
Yeah.
67 minutes, 107. I did this when I first did this. It was exactly 108. When I stopped, it happened to go 108. Okay, so it's like, this is authorized commentary.
Hanumat Presak Swami Maharaj ki
Yeah.